Welcome to our second episode of Where's a Teaspoon and our first episode for 2024. Today we're going to be learning about the Smurfs, but it's not the colony of small blue creatures. It's a new team that was established here in DCHS earlier this year. And today we are chatting to Papa Smurf, aka Tom Davidson. So Tom, thank you for coming on and being our second guest. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you for having me. Having listened to last week, I am a little bit nervous because that's a tough act to follow. Very entertaining stuff.
Yeah, it was a great story from Tracy. But your story is equally wonderful, Tom, because I had a bit of a chat with you the other week, so I'm excited to share some of your story. Can you start off and tell us a little bit about the Smurfs? What are the Smurfs?
Absolutely. So yeah, this whole title of the Smurfs is something we've been unable to shake, but we have now embraced. It comes from the abbreviation of SMF, which is Self-Management Facilitators. This idea is something that we didn't invent. We had a bit of inspiration from elsewhere in the country. In Leeds, there was a Smurf idea, self-management facilitator idea, that is now 5 years in. And this idea felt like something that could have real merit in other areas. So it was brought to us by Adam Short, who had been sat in on a meeting. It really piqued his interest. And if you've met Adam or spoke to Adam, he's very enthusiastic about, he's passionate about projects that really interest him. And I was sitting in a meeting with Adam, and this passion about it was incredibly infectious. So Adam brought to us the idea of self-management facilitators, and he sort of went, well, they're referring to them as Smurfs, but don't worry, it won't stick. Oh, it stuck. So the self-management facilitators, what the idea of our little group is to promote people's independence through behavioural change. So in a nutshell, we're trying to meet with our patients and our service users who are existing on the caseload or maybe new coming to community services, and we're trying to see what kind of involvement they can have. Could they be more involved in their own care? Is there a way to empower them? Is there a way to use the skills that they probably have from a lifetime of doing whatever it is they do, and they can be a more integral part of their care?
And so since you've started, Tom, can you give me a couple of examples maybe of some successes, some standout successes or patient feedback that have really resonated with you as a healthcare professional that makes you know that we're doing a good job here?
Absolutely. I mean, we've tried to, because obviously this, like you say, we're a reasonably new service. We're just almost a year into seeing patients now. We thought, as a pilot scheme, which has now gone substantive, while we were a pilot, we wanted to be able to gather patient feedback to be able to direct the way in which the service developed. It was really important to us that our service users were able to contribute to this new developing service. So we had a lot of help from health informatics, Civic, to design our own little bits of questionnaires and ways of getting qualitative feedback to hear what people's opinions were, service users, family members of service users. And I don't think anybody's got into this job because they just want to be able to decline services to people. We want to, and we were worried at first, I'll be honest, with the sort of press that we get at the minute with the NHS, that we are under a lot of pressure, that we are strained, that the service is stretched, and anybody working in the service will be feeling that pressure. We didn't want it to appear that the idea of the Smurf team was to come in and take something away from them. We wanted it to be giving them something.
Yes.
But we were understandably nervous about asking for people to say, what's your experience been like? When, you know, this isn't what happens, but we've basically gone to a person who's been having care and gone, no, you're going to be doing this. I mean, we were open to some criticism there. We were a little worried. But to my absolute relief, when we got our first batch of Civic feedback, what we found is that the push-pull kind of techniques, a grow model, these are the things that the health psychologists have worked with us to develop into our normal day-to-day conversations. And these were leaving people feeling empowered. A lot of the time, people were using the word empowered, maybe having more control, more independence. So I've got a couple of examples that I could talk about with that. One of them was a lovely gentleman who had gone into hospital for a surgery, and he'd been discharged with a catheter. And it's not unusual for this to happen. You can go in and have maybe a general anaesthetic, And when you're discharged, if you're unable to pass urine, you'll leave there with a catheter with a follow-up plan for community.
Yeah.
But during this time, we'd first met this gentleman to show him how to use his catheter more adequately. So this was completely new to the gentleman. He'd never thought, no one expects these things to happen to them, but he'd come out, he's got this apparatus that he's finding quite uncomfortable and unusual and unsightly, and it made him feel quite embarrassed. So he come back and he lived with his wife. He had to explain, okay, here's the thing that I'm going to be doing now. I've got a catheter. Here's where it goes to. It's a coy subject, isn't it? And this is a bag I have to empty into the toilet. I have to make sure I'm drinking the right amount of fluid. And this was a conversation that was like a big supported conversation with the Smurfs when they first came out, because in the hospital a lot of the time, beds are a necessity. People have to be discharged home in order to get new people in, and they need that care. So they'll come home to the community sometimes with, things still to learn. And that's where the Smurfs can step in. So we sent one of our, I'm not going to name people again because I don't want anyone to be favoritized, but one of our Smurfs went in, spoke to this gentleman and spent a bit of time, which maybe the community nursing teams wouldn't be able to do, wouldn't have enough time to do it because they are under so much pressure. Sat down and had a discussion about all the things about a catheter that maybe you would need to know. It was almost like a frequently asked question. So how do you maintain this catheter? How do you manage it? What do I need to look out for? Are there signs of infection that are obvious to people? What kind of adjustments to my lifestyle would there need to be? Fluid intake, dietary intake, positioning. And these are easy conversations to have when you're including someone in them, because this person's got experience that we don't have. I've never had a catheter in. I talk about them all the time, but I've not been on that receiving end of things. It's really nice to hear what people think about it and how it does feel to be in that position. This gentleman said that he felt completely sort of overwhelmed by it all. He'd gone in for one thing. He'd come out with his catheter. Is this forever now? Is this something that I'm always going to have? And of course, the answer you can give him at first is, well, I can't tell you with any level of certainty whether this is definitely forever or not. But what we were able to do was have a look into his future a little bit and plan him a little bit of a trial without a catheter, a TWAC. Now, I've recently learned, going to see a different patient, that TWAC means different things to different people, doesn't it? Do you know what it means to the police? Taken without consent. So when we're going in and telling people we're going to TWAC them, it depends on your perspective. Okay. There, you could be just stealing their stuff. So I've stopped abbreviating that one now, because apparently that's a more well-known abbreviation than what we were saying.
You do have to be careful with the abbreviations, and there are so many within the NHS. Yeah,
I've learned so many lessons from health literacy and whatever else about lingo and talking to somebody on a level that's accessible, because that you can't get your point across, can you, when you're using the language that's just absolutely inaccessible to anybody else.
Yeah.
Back to the gentleman. He was quite keen on trying without this catheter. Now that is something that is routine when someone's discharged from hospital. If you've got a short-term catheter in, basically instead of just putting a new catheter in, next time you have it out, take the catheter out in the morning, push fluids, have plenty to drink, scan the bladder in the afternoon, and if they've managed to avoid that bladder, they don't really need the catheter anymore. So that's a really positive outcome if you can get it. You can't promise it to anybody though, because there's always the chance you take the catheter out, urinary retention ensues, and that person's got to have another catheter back in, as well as an uncomfortable day. So it's a tricky one. Well, what the Smurfs were able to do was they really listened to the gentleman. They asked him what his priorities were, what he wanted to do. Do you know what, if we give you this information and you follow it, the outcome would be possibly you get your catheter out. But the other way this could go is you might call us saying, I am in some discomfort here and please come back out again. But we gave him his options. I think what we got from our feedback from this gentleman was he felt included in the decision making. He felt like we listened. He felt like this wasn't just a set play. This was, I've got options A, B, and C. And what my input was important and valued. That was what his feedback said. And that was wonderful to hear, because a lot of the time, especially with medical interventions, can be quite black and white, can't it? It can be, you have such and such condition or affliction, and the treatment for that is, it's just this. This is what it is, and here's how it's going to be. But there is a way to have a conversation that's more inclusive, and there is a way that we can talk to somebody and let them give us their thoughts. Is there a reason why this is particularly embarrassing. I mean, he told me that he's got a good fluid intake. This man was good at drinking, which stopped a lot of problems, but his leg bag filled up really, really quickly. So he had a big bag of urine strapped to his leg, and he wanted to leave the house. And a lot of community services are for housebound patients only, but with a catheter, we do see non-housebound patients. I'd like to plug the catheter clinic as well. Actually, they're doing a great job. One day a week on a Thursday, send your referrals through. But it's not my project. I just really admire what they're doing. But no, this gentleman was he basically thought, I've got a bag of wee and it's on my leg. And whatever trousers I wear, you can see a little tap sticking out the bottom. That's incredibly embarrassing for him.
Yeah,
and
it's hard, isn't it? Yeah.
You can sort of see the catheters are a means to an end, and there are options. But when you're first adjusted to something like that, I can understand why you'd feel embarrassed about that. I told him an anecdote actually, which was a case of I spoke to somebody day in day out at a previous job. I had no idea they were catheterized, and they told me in a conversation that actually I've got a long-term catheter because I've got a damage to my bladder. I wear a catheter all the time. I retain without it. It's the only reason you'd have one. And I talked, you know what, embarrassingly, I talked to them, giving them, I told this person this about a catheter, I told this person that about this person knew much more about catheters than I did, and they let me talk. Intelligent people will let idiots talk sometimes. You've probably got some experience in this. But no, he, told me all about, actually, I've got a catheter. What you said was mostly right. And I was like, I'll take that. Early in my career. But you can learn a lot from people. They're a great resource. And that's why the feedback's been so important to us. Time for another one?
Yeah, another one would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Your success stories, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just tell you all about all the successes and none of the failures. Fortunately for us, we've got much more success stories and failures to talk about at this stage. But every time anybody fails, it's an opportunity to learn. That's what I always say to my team.
That's a great way of looking at it. Yeah, I love that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you get everything right the first time, you're never going to develop, are you? Which is difficult for me because I'm always right. Just for the sound there, I paused for a drink, not for an applause. Anyway, so the second person I'll talk about was a lovely lady. She was young by the grand scheme of things. I'm going to say slightly older than me and leave it to the listener's imagination. But
that's not fair. They can't see you.
Oh, I look really old. I'm glad this is when they say face for radio. Well, just imagine that. That's me. So, hey, wait, you've got an image of me for this, haven't you? Annie, sorry.
Well, yeah,
back to the question.
We will, a bit picture on there.
So we went to see somebody who was a lady of middling age, and she'd come out following an elective surgery with enoxaparin. That's a low molecular weight heparin, and it's a blood thinner to the rest of us. So having a blood thinner post-surgery to minimise risk of blood clots is a normal practice. We get a lot of our custom through this. So these are pre-measured syringes of injections of blood thinner that are designed for self-administration. It's a measured dose titrated to the person's weight. It's gone dry again, hasn't it? Look, that's a bit dry. But it's an injection that's specific to the patient. Designed for self-administration. It self-sheathes. You chuck it away in your yellow bin to dispose of correctly, and it's not difficult to do. And I've spent ages telling people how not difficult to do this is. And we spoke to this lady. I was there for this one. I wasn't in control, but I was just doing a bit of shadowing on the time. I was spending a bit of time with my team, and I started talking about, it's a self-administer this injection. It's not difficult to do. And they went, have you ever given yourself an injection? And it shut me right up because I haven't given myself an injection before. And I stopped and I went, no. And they went, what about, think about it. They were very eloquent. Think about it. I'm gonna put a needle in my skin. It's gonna go into my tummy. Is it gonna hurt? And it's a very difficult thing to say, that you're gonna feel a needle go into your skin. I mean, I can't lie about that one. There's a needle going to go into your skin and you'll be aware of it. But if you had inoculations before, it's just like, well, it's not the same. You're asking me to do this myself. No, and it's an interesting discussion to have with someone, especially when their frame of reference is going to be better than yours as soon as they've done one injection. So what we take with us is we affectionately refer to them as dummy tummies. So you're going to have to imagine this, but it's a small, square, spongy, skin-coloured thing with a similar consistency to my tummy. You two look thinner than me, but it's fleshy. It's supposed to be subcutaneous fat. Okay, and we also take very, very kindly provided by Nixa these dummy tummies and empty injections. An injection with nothing in it, but it's all the same mechanism and apparatus. So you have to open the packaging, you have to take the bung off the end of the syringe, and then we get them to inject it into the dummy tummy as a practice, basically. And then depress the plunger slowly, and it self sheathes. So you can have a dummy run, basically. So we had a dummy run, and this lady who had absolutely insisted she was a needle phobe. She didn't want to look in the direction of the needle at first, and you know, I can. Do you know? It turns out everybody's a needle phobe the first time you produce a needle. You get better quick. But yeah, she had to go with this dummy tummy and pretend injection, and she did it. She went, okay. I kind of thought that would be more difficult. And we thought, golden, we've got this sorted, wrapped up in one visit, no problems at all. This lady's going to be super independent. And then we gave her a real injection. She went, no. And we sat and we had a chat about it all. And what we find is if you do the first injection for anybody, it becomes sort of a nurse's job a little bit. We try in the Smurf team to ensure that first injection is self-administered, and we'll do as many practice runs as needed, but that first injection needs to be self-administered.
But they've got you with them, like, to
absolutely, no, for supervision, and sometimes we catch them at hospital level. This lady we got at home, but we do go to the wards in RDH at the minute. Hopefully, more hospitals soon. But yeah, we go bedside when they've had their operation. We catch them with the guard down. Go, hi, we're here from the Smurf team, and we have a little bit of a laugh about that we're Smurfs and we should be wearing blue. And then we talk about this idea of an injection and a self-administration of that injection. And it, you know, the earlier you catch people, the more likely they are to give it a go themselves.
Yeah.
But back to our young lady. Basically, she did this anticipation of giving the injection. Her hands were shaking. It was really, really difficult for her. And I've got to be honest, I was thinking, oh, this might be one of the few times when it doesn't go our way. And it feels like such a simple thing, but if you're nervous about anything, if you build it up and you get that genuine anxiety, adrenaline feeling, a simple thing can become a really big thing. So we had a minute. We took a minute. We stepped back from it all. And we went, let's talk about it a bit more. Tell me what it is that worries you too. Is it just the needle going in the skin? And they said, well, no, I mean, and it's an injection, isn't it? It's a syringe of fluid. There's a needle on it. There's measurements, there's gauges. This all feels quite medical. This doesn't feel like something I do myself. It feels like I'm not safe. I don't feel like I'm in control of. I don't really know I don't understand what a low molecular weight heparin is. You know,
it's all very alien, isn't it? If you don't work in the industry, yeah.
And if you try and sort of like empathise with somebody in that position, it's very easy to see where they're coming from. So we paused for a minute. We took a pause moment. We had a little chat about it all. She told me all about how it was. She said that previously she'd known someone who'd done her own injections, and they bruised. They'd really bruised. She'd done them all wrong and they bruised. Now, what you'll find with blood thinners is it bruises. You can do it perfectly, but it always bruises. And this was early on in the Smurfing days. We did actually think to ourselves, it's probably something we should talk about. If you've done a bruise, it doesn't mean you've done it wrong. This is the medication doing what it does. I mean, there is an element of bruising involved occasionally. You can be perfect at it and still leave a bruise. You can not feel a thing and it'll still be purple in the morning. But we went through it again, and she went, I think she got tired of listening to me. I'm sorry, this is bad for your podcast, but she got tired of listening to me. She went, give me it. Let me have a go. I'll have a go at this. She did it, honestly. Her technique, when she did it, I thought, ooh, she could do my job better than me, possibly. That was perfect. I'd have her teaching it. Really, really good. She did it. Straight in the shot, it was like perfect textbook stuff, and we'd spend a bit of time talking about it with a couple of practices. But it was absolutely textbook, and she went, that is easy. I mean, what was I telling you? What was I telling you? I love being told I'm right, but she went, yeah, you're right, that was easy. And her feedback was that in the dialogue, when we were talking about it all, we didn't rush her. She wasn't rushed. She wasn't. At no point did she feel like forced to do anything. We would have accepted no. We would have. It's physically possible for her to not do it, I suppose. But this lady was proud of what she'd achieved. She said she thought she couldn't have done it, but she was able to do it. She felt proud of what she'd achieved. And that was lovely that we'd given her that. And it felt like that felt like such a good win. And it's why we're doing this kind of job. We want people to And when we leave that place, to feel like they've accomplished something, you know, I had a bit of support, now I can do it. So that's fantastic. It's a really good feeling, and I try and feed this feedback to our team, who all take such pride in their work. They're really diligent, hard workers. They're like a multi-skilled, like come from different backgrounds. We've got people from like a rapid response team, people from community nursing, people from D2A, discharge to assess, people that have been carers in the past, people that are district nurses, and they all bring something special and unique to this skills mix. I couldn't be prouder of them, honestly. They're doing such good work, and they really do appreciate hearing this good feedback, but they're receptive to negative feedback if and when we get it, which we never do.
It sounds like, no, I think you're all doing an amazing job. It sounds
they're making me proud
great.
every day.
Yeah. So nursing was not your first career choice, was it?
Oh, it wasn't.
Tell us about that.
Okay.
Tell us how you got into this role.
It's an interesting one. So we've all been young once. I've alluded to the fact that I'm not there now, but so I come from a family of medical professionals. So my dad was a GP, my mum was a nurse, my brother's training to be a physiotherapist. I mean, it's a medical family, really, and I grew up around this stuff. So what does any young person do when there's a family trend? Rebel. So I decided, obviously, I want nothing to do with anything medical. Why would I? This is what the folks do. How boring. I went off to business school. Seemed like a really clever and good. Yeah. What a boring rebellion that is, isn't it? Really boring. But I would go and learn business. I'll show them. And I had a great time, actually. I really enjoyed university. I 3 years living away. I learned a lot of useful things, which, you know, recently I've actually been able to call on, but until recently there weren't a lot of use. But yeah, no, I went off to university, studied business and marketing, graduated that, and got a job in marketing. I did a bit of key accounts management, and managed a few marketing teams. Hated every second of it. Realised as soon as I'd started doing it that I'd made a terrible mistake, and I'd had people, family and friends tell me, you know what, you'd really suit nursing. You'd be all right with that. And I was a bit like, come on, I'm going to be this big exec. I'm going to wear a suit. And I'm going to have a company car. I'm going to be really important. I'm carrying a briefcase. And, you know, I'll have a fountain pen. I don't know. Yeah, it didn't suit me at all. It wasn't. I mean, you might be getting a picture of what I'm about, but this was very serious work, very sensible. There'd be days when I didn't speak to anybody. I'd be in a boardroom or an office, and you know, it wasn't for me. So I down tools. I went, no, I'm going to rebel. And my rebellion was, obviously I'm a rebel. Clearly, it's my second rebellion. I took a year out. I went to Australia. I spent a whole year, bought a camper van. I grew. That's when I grew the beard. Just travelled the entire continent. Came back a year later and went, all right, fine. What am I going to do now? And my mum went, "You're going to do nursing yet?" And I went to an open day. I came to an open day in Derby, actually. Derby Uni were out canvassing. I walked past. It was pretty serendipitous. Two very charming nurses, a guy and a girl, both came over to me and went, would you be interested in a career in nursing? It's like almost getting recruited, like when the army do it. And I sort of went, oh, I don't know, you know, I've thought about it, but I don't really know. And they did exactly the thing that you'd do if you want me to do anything, which was to challenge me and go, a bit hard for you, is it? Bit tough. I was like, no, what? Rebellion, third rebellion strikes in. And I thought, you know what? It's more university, and I had no money at this point because I just spent it all in Australia. I had to move back home. I thought, you know what, I'll give it a go. And from day one of that training that I had, I never regretted it. I've never looked back, and I can't imagine doing anything else. It was absolutely for me. It was a real cut off your nose to spite your face moment when I realised that I could have been doing this for, you know, 5, 6, 7 years longer if I'd have just not been an idiot.
Did your mum say, "I told you so"? I knew this was right for you all along.
She's still saying it. I've been in nurse for 15 years, and she's still telling me I told you so. So I mean, I think what you got to accept at some point is that mums are right most of the time, aren't they?
Mums are always right. Yes.
Mums are always. Yeah, I can't. Most of the time, I get picked up on that. Yeah, always right. That's quite right. I did doubt myself in the. So I did one more thing, like that. Anecdotal, but with reference to the injections again. I was saying I used to be, prior to nursing, I used to be very squeamish about blood, hated all blood, absolute wimp with injections. Even if they're being done to me, can't take it. And on that first week of nursing studies, you get like a barrage of blood tests and inoculations, don't you? The big old Q was trying to make friends and influence people. I can talk a good game, you might notice, but I got to the front of this queue and was just like this cold sweat come over me, like, oh no, needles. Oh, it's probably going to be fine. I was going to look really brave. And I sat in the chair, lovely nurse. She came to me and she went, "Are you afraid of needles?" I went, "No." And she put the needle in my arm and I passed out like a big wimp. It was very embarrassing. So yeah, I had to wear that for 3 years at nurse training. And what I found was when I learned to take blood, when I learned phlebotomy, when I learned a bit more about the processes, had a bit more information. I've not been scared of it since. I'm fine with needles now.
Well,
But
that's really interesting, isn't it, in terms of the work you do now then? So
I use it as a
as
frame
soon
of
as
reference
you
all the
know
time.
more about it, then yeah, you have the confidence.
It takes the sting out of it. It takes the power away. I think the unknown frightens people, doesn't it? If there's when anyone learns a new skill or a new thing, you know, when you get all that information at the beginning, it's information overload. You go, oh my God, I'm never going to get my head around this. I don't understand what's being presented to me here. It's frightening, and our reaction is to disengage sometimes. And I think having an experience or knowledge or anything to do with that really does change the way that you give information to people. Because, you know, I'm not the quickest study in the world, but once I've got something I've got it in my head and I do get what I'm talking about, I'll speak about it more confidently and I'll engage with it. It doesn't frighten me. But I can understand this is new information that we're giving to a lot of people, and that is frightening. That is scary. But yeah, so tried business, not for me. Nursing, love it. I think I found the right thing now.
Perfect. Well, that's great. So no third career then for you, Tom, but if you could change places for just one day with anybody here in DCHS, if you could do anyone's job for a day, who would you choose? Whose
So that's a
job
good
you
one.
want?
That's a good one. Whose job do I want? See,
Yeah.
this is a shame because I know you've got quite a good listenership now, and you had a good first episode. So I don't want to try and like steal anybody's job live on your podcast. There's a few things that interest me, if I'm honest. Can anything go into the comms team? It seems like it's quite a nice gig.
Well,
I
you
talk
didn't
to
like
people.
marketing.
I
You
didn't
said it
like
was
marketing.
boring. You think
No,
we're
you're
all
right.
boring.
I don't think that was as interesting as what you're doing. No, mate. Okay, I'll give comms team a miss. I mean, I don't want to do backwards progression, but the time I spent as a community nurse and a district nurse, I really enjoyed that time. And that's not to say it was easy. It was incredibly challenging. In fact, I think that's the hardest work I've ever done, is working on them as patient-facing frontline people. So I mean, I think they have my admiration all the time. And coming from that background and now sort of managing teams that are similar to that, you know, hats off to them. They're doing incredible work during a really hard time, and COVID changed everything. So that's too hard for me. I don't want that job. What about? No, do you know what? What I would like to do, and it's because it's a recent foray for me, but with this developing the new team that I've developed, I really like project management. I'm really enjoying having the opportunity to take a step back from service delivery, look at potential quality improvements that can be made, making a plan for them and enacting them. So project work is really, really interesting to me now. That's going to sound very boring for a podcast, but I do really like it. That's not a flashy answer at all. Project work. I really like service development. I really like being able to contribute to DCHS, giving the best service to our service users. Because you know, it's the DCHS values resonate with me. Gosh, it gets more and more boring, my answer. Wait, I'll stop there actually, because I don't know, it's not a recruitment pitch. I like project work. but if Tracy Allen's job's going, I'll have a go.
You'll have a go. Okay, we'll pass that on.
Just pass it on for me. Thanks, Tracy.
Yeah. Tom. Well, thank you so much for being our first guest of 2024.
Thank
As
you.
we get into the new year now, do you have any goals or plans for the year ahead, professionally, personally? What's 2024 looking like for you?
There's a thing that I'm trying to do, but I don't know how secret it is. I might be looking for one of these other jobs. I'm going to spill the beans anyway, because this is a great platform for it. But so Smurfs has been located in Derby City alone so far. That's where we started. It's where we found our feet. It's where we've developed all the models that we've got for promoting independence. In the new year, through discussions we've been having that were semi-secret, I think. When's this go out? January. I might be all right. We are hoping to expand county-wide. So we are looking at setting up more Smurfs, more Smurfing teams. We'd like to go up to
Smurfs
Chesterfield.
multiplying.
More Smurfs everywhere, Smurfs galore. We've got a lot to offer. So my team in Derby are going to keep doing the good work that they're doing here. But I'll be expanding out towards Chesterfield to try and get a foothold in Chesterfield Hospital, try and meet some teams up there. I'll be looking for some excellent candidates to apply for the role. I'm happy to give more information about that. Amber Valley and Arrowash, I've got my eyes on you as well. I'll take it all the way from the top to the bottom, right down to Swaddling Coat. So that's my plan for the new year. I'd love to take the model and everything we've learned, because hindsight's 2020. I'd love to take that and spread it county-wide, because I really feel like the project's got a lot to offer.
Amazing. Well, you've heard it here first, people. If you want to join the Smurfs, get in touch with Papa Smurf.
Let me know. Tom.Davidson1@nhs.net.
That's fantastic. Tom, thank you so much for telling us a little bit more about the team and yourself, and it's been really nice to chat to you.
Thank you so much for having me on. I've really enjoyed my first podcast experience. If nobody comes forward, I will do a funny voice and pretend to be somebody else next week or the week after.